900 plants in a single square meter. In the 1850s, market gardeners outside Paris turned a quarter-acre into a living using a method so productive it helped feed one of the largest cities on Earth. Then industrial agriculture arrived, and this system all but vanished. Not because it failed, because it was forgotten. What these growers understood about soil may be the most overlooked farming knowledge ever lost. On the outskirts of Paris in the mid-1800s, land was precious and every square meter counted. The city's population was booming, and the appetite for fresh vegetables seemed endless. Market demand was not just high, it was urgent. At Les Halles, the central market, buyers paid a premium for produce that arrived crisp and early, sometimes fetching double the price of goods grown farther afield. Yet most growers did not own their plots. Instead, they worked under short-term leases, known as baux à métayage, which often lasted just a few years. These agreements pushed growers to extract as much value as possible from every bit of soil, since they had no guarantee of keeping the land long-term. A historian leafs through an 1845 manual, its pages yellowed, but its advice sharp. Its advice was to maximize yield, minimize waste, and keep the soil alive. The manual, published by the Harricourt brothers-in-law, codified a system that would become the backbone of Parisian market gardening. In these gardens, families and hired hands worked side by side, transforming small, fragmented plots into engines of production. The lease model shaped every decision. There was no incentive for fallow years or low-density planting. Every inch was cultivated. Every season counted. Urban proximity meant that vegetables could be harvested at dawn and sold at Les Halles by midday, locking in freshness and high prices. The economic pressure to deliver more from less led to a remarkable set of growing practices. These were not just clever tricks. They were born of necessity. The city's hunger, the cost of land, and the realities of short leases forced growers to invent a system where even a quarter acre could support a family. This was no accident of history. It was the product of ingenuity, hard work, and a relentless drive to make small spaces yield abundance. A garden bed begins with a simple rectangle, 4 feet by 8 feet, staked and marked with string. The work is physical, but the logic is precise. First, a narrow trench is dug along one short end, about a spade's width and a full foot deep. That first trench's soil goes into a wheelbarrow, set aside for later. At the bottom of the trench, a layer of mature compost, roughly 3 cubic feet, is spread evenly. This compost does not just feed the plants above, it breaks up the compacted lower soil, letting roots and water travel freely. Next comes the heart of double digging. A second trench, right beside the first, is dug to the same depth. The loosened soil from this new trench is shoveled directly into the first, mixing with the compost below. Clods are broken up, stones tossed aside. The process repeats, trench by trench, down the length of the bed. Each time, soil from the new trench fills the last, always with a layer of compost at the bottom. By the end, the final trench is filled with the soil that was set aside at the start. After double digging, the bed sits 6 to 8 inches higher than the surrounding ground, a gentle rise, not a frame. This extra height means better drainage and warmth in the spring. For one 4x8 bed, the work takes 6 to 8 hours for a fit worker or a day's effort for a small family team. The tools are basic: a spade, a trowel for detail work, a wheelbarrow, and a rake to even out the surface. Historic illustrations show the same wooden-handled spades and simple wheelbarrows found in Parisian gardens over a century ago. An agronomist leafs through a well-thumbed manual and explains, double digging creates a living soil. Roots can reach deeper, water stays where it is needed, and organic matter feeds the entire profile. Once prepared, these beds can be replanted season after season with only light forking to keep the structure open. The foundation is set for dense planting and abundant harvests, all from a plot small enough to walk across in 20 steps. A simple change in planting geometry unlocked the full earning power of the Parisian market garden. Instead of straight rows, Growers used a hexagonal pattern, a triangular lattice that fits the maximum number of plants into a small space. Each seedling sits at the center of a six-pointed star, every point exactly the same distance from its neighbors. For salad greens, the standard was 15 centimeters apart, measured fingertip to fingertip. Root crops like carrots went even tighter, squeezed to just 2 or 3 centimeters between each seed. This wasn't guesswork, it was precise, almost mathematical. Historic ledgers from the 1880s list carrot densities as high as 900 plants per square meter, a figure that still outpaces most modern farms. The benefits went beyond sheer numbers. With so little bare soil, weeds barely stood a chance. Young plants quickly shaded the ground, blocking sunlight from beaching unwanted seeds. This living carpet meant less time spent hoeing, more time harvesting. Every inch of the bed was working, every day of the season. But such abundance came at a cost. These tightly packed crops drew heavily on the soil's reserves. The method demanded a steady supply of nutrients, delivered through regular composting and careful management. Without rich living soil beneath, the dense pattern would quickly exhaust itself. The French intensive gardener knew this balance by heart. Maximum yield above ground, matched by constant renewal below. In the heart of a Parisian garden, a pile of compost does more than feed the soil. It becomes a living furnace. Each winter, growers built their own microclimate using little more than kitchen scraps, straw, and manure. When stacked and turned, these heaps reached temperatures of 60 degrees Celsius, hot enough to steam on a frosty morning. The warmth was not wasted. Gardeners shoveled a 30-centimeter layer of this active compost into the base of a simple cold frame, measuring 6 by 8 feet. Above, a pane of glass or clear polycarbonate angled to the south trapped sunlight by day and held in the compost heat by night. Even when the air outside dropped below freezing, soil inside the frame stayed 5 to 7 degrees warmer than the ground beyond, enough to coax spinach, lettuce, and kale through the darkest months. A compost thermometer plunged into the pile confirmed the heat was real, not just tradition. This low-tech climate control, built from reclaimed wood and organic waste, let beds produce food nearly year-round. The result was fresh greens for the market weeks before the competition, and a steady income from a plot no bigger than a suburban backyard. A market gardener's calendar hung by the door, filled with penciled notes and a rhythm that rarely broke. Every 2 or 3 weeks, another round of seeds went into the ground. This was not guesswork. It was a deliberate pattern, tuned to keep the harvest flowing from March through October. In early March, peas were sown in the cold soil, staking the claim for the year's first green shoots. By mid-March, carrots, beets, and onions followed, tucked into their own corners of the bed. Early April brought lettuce, radish, and spinach, filling the spaces left by the first harvests. When late April arrived, beans were interplanted among the maturing lettuce, their vines ready to climb as the greens made way. Each sowing came on a strict 2 or 3 week cadence, creating a living conveyor belt of crops. Beds never sat idle. As one row was cleared, another was seeded, ensuring a steady supply for the market and a reliable income for the family. This succession schedule, anchored by the seasons and measured in careful intervals, was the backbone of the French intensive method. It turned a small plot into a year-round pipeline of produce, each week bringing something new to the table and something fresh to sell. A single ledger, dog-eared and dusted with soil, tells the story better than any manual. On its pages, a modern gardener records a season's worth of numbers, every crate of greens, every hour spent in the beds, every market day. The totals are not theory, they are proof. Over one growing season, the quarter-acre plot brings in between €12,000 and €15,000 in gross sales. After costs, compost, seeds, water, and about 500 hours of labor, the net margin lands between 35 and 45%. That means a profit of €4,200 to €6,750, all from a space most would call a backyard. Sales channels are direct and local. Saturday mornings at the farmer's market, weekly community-supported agriculture boxes packed for loyal families, and a waiting list that grows longer each spring. The ledger breaks it down week by week: lettuce and radishes in April, carrots and beans by June, spinach and kale stretching into autumn. Every entry is a reminder that the French intensive method is not just a relic, but a living system. In the right hands, a quarter acre becomes not only a garden, but a livelihood. Today, as land prices soar and food insecurity grows, small-scale ingenuity matters more than ever. Rediscovering these forgotten methods isn't nostalgia, it's practical resilience. A quarter acre still holds the power to nourish and sustain. Sometimes, the future grows from the wisdom we nearly left behind. What's your take?